We've got a great group to discuss all of this. Former acting U.S. Solicitor General Neil Katyal is with us. Also, professor of history at Tulane University, Walter Isaacson, and senior lecturer at Yale University's Jackson Institute for Global Affairs, Asha Rangappa. She's a former FBI agent specializing in counterintelligence investigation. Good morning to you all. Neil, I'll begin with you, and where to begin with everything that you saw yesterday, beginning with that meeting, that Star Wars bar-style meeting, as you've described it, on December 18th.
Yeah, so the Star Wars bar-style meeting, I think, provides an important link. There's basically two buckets of evidence that both Congress is looking at and that I suspect the Justice Department's looking at. One is the stuff that we've all seen with our eyes, the insurrectionists attacking the Capitol with violence, force, and resulting in death. The other bucket of evidence is the White House officials, including Donald Trump, what was their involvement and relationship to what happened there? And what the hearing yesterday did, I think, so well, including with this December 18th evidence, is draw a link between the two, that you have this kind of insane meeting. I mean, the idea that Sidney Powell and Michael Flynn and people like that are advising the President of the United States in the Oval Office with the White House counsel not even knowing how they got in the building. This is all extraordinary. I mean, Sidney Powell is not qualified to advise a dog catcher, but here she is doing this. And then you have the tweet by Trump just hours later saying, come on January 6th, it's going to be wild. So that's one piece of evidence. And then the other evidence that was developed by the committee is that this plan for the January 6th insurrection wasn't spontaneous. It was all baked in. And then most tantalizingly, at the end of the hearing, the committee said, next week, you're going to hear from Pat Cipollone, the White House counsel, and he's going to take you through minute by minute those 181 minutes and what Donald Trump was doing or really not doing. Didn't call the Attorney General, didn't call the Department of Homeland Security, didn't call the Army, nothing while the Capitol's being invaded.
Yeah, and Neil, all of this didn't just happen. We find out, of course, we've guessed it all along, but we find out yesterday that it was planned. We, of course, heard the explosive testimony last week from Cassidy Hutchinson that Trump was belligerent, went irate, went crazy inside the Beast when he was not allowed to go up to the Capitol. We now find out that he had seen a draft of a tweet that he was going to be sending out saying that they were going to march up to the Capitol. Then, of course, somebody probably said, Mr. President, you can't do that. That we then just saw the text saying that Trump is going to spontaneously bring this up, so don't mention it. Let's keep it quiet until the last moment. And so you look at the fact that all of this was planned. You look at what Steve Bannon says on January the 5th about the chaos that's going to reign on January the 6th. And suddenly you are piecing together, again, something that, my God, I just don't know how Merrick Garland, the Justice Department, avoids taking a very close look at and looking at the prosecution of the former president of the United States. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Joe. So premeditation is not required. It's not an element of the offenses that look like that Donald Trump's looking at, things like, conspiracy or attempt to obstruct an official proceeding. Those are the ones that a federal judge in California has already said it's more likely than not that Donald Trump is committed. But this premeditation evidence that the committee put forth that you're referring to is gravy. I mean, it's incredibly important and helpful for prosecutors or for the congressional committee. And to just pick up on your last point, Joe, I 100% agree with you. It was one thing before these hearings for Merrick Garland to maybe, pretend that this was all swept under the rug and we didn't know all the involvement. It was just bucket one evidence about the insurrectionists. But now we know. And it would be incredibly corrosive to the rule of law. I mean, I can't imagine something more damaging than to say, hey, this is okay for a president of the United States to do. These are literally the most serious crimes imaginable in the book. Using your presidential office to try and keep yourself in power and interfere with the result of a lawful election. And so I don't think Merrick Garland has a choice. I'm sure he doesn't want to do this, be the first attorney general in the history of the United States to indict a former president. But the evidence is what the evidence is.
Well, he has two choices. He has two doors to walk through. One of them is that we are a nation where no man is above the law. And the other one is that we are a nation where, well, the Justice Department decides to prosecute who they decide to prosecute. And if you're a former president, if you're powerful enough, then the laws don't apply to you, even when you're trying to take down the United States government.